marketer and has a proven track record of securing funding and engaging audiences across both local and international platforms. So today Ciara will share our expertise on exploring additional funding avenues for parishes and church maintenance, and we'll look at different things like grants, community initiatives and partnerships. Having worked closely myself with Ciara since 2019, I can personally say she's exceptionally efficient and dedicated to her role, and she's earned a good reputation nationally amongst parishes and dioceses, and we're very fortunate to have her here today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lee. That's lovely words, and it's always a pleasure to work with Lee. And if he thinks I'm efficient, then he embarrasses me with how efficient he is. So he's always at the end of the phone. And thank you very much for organising this, Lee. It's really great to be here. And thank you as well to Evan and to Fintan. I'd say Evan, Fintan and Lee all want to block my number and my email because I'm always hounding them, probably at the last minute, for help with grants. I work a lot with Evan, especially on the conservation grants, but when he was speaking I was thinking, I don't think that we've ever not got a grant that we've applied for that Evan has been the stained glass artist on, because the documentation he produces to support the grant and the proposal is excellent, and obviously he has a great reputation with the conservation officers across the country, because I think that's one of the things that they look at, and Fintan as well. One of the first things they look at when they see the proposals is who's involved in this project. So I'd say when they see Evan or Fintan's name on it, that'll get you up the pile, up the priority list, because they'll know that the project's in safe hands. So I know it's been a lot of information given today. So all you need to remember from what I say is that I am here to help you. So I'm the grants officer with the Bishops' Conference. I help parishes and dioceses across the island, and so I help people to become aware of what the grant opportunities are, to understand what they need to have in place in order to apply for the grants, and then to help them to manage the grant process all the way through to reporting. So it depends on what the capacity is of the parish, but I can help in a very, like holding hands all the way, or in a light touch way where if there's somebody in the parish who wants to give it a go, and I can help them then to get it through to the end. But so basically all you need to remember is that I'm the grants officer. I'm here to help you. So if you have a project underway, or you are planning a project, or you think you might have a project, just call me or email me before you even get going, and we'll start thinking about what kind of grants might be possible for you to get. And you can stop me at any time if you have any questions, or we can chat at the end. So, and the other thing is, I just met somebody in the hallway who said he's looking after 6 churches. So I'm always absolutely blown away by the priests, the volunteers, the staff, who on top of caring for hundreds upon thousands of people and their well-being, have to also look after these buildings. And so I think it's phenomenal what everybody's doing. And I know that grants is so far down the list of what you want to be doing, but I'm here to help. But one of the people used to, I've been in the job, this is my 7th year in the job, but I used to have to really push people to apply for grants. But it's not the same now. But when you do get a grant, it's a huge boost for the community. So I got this message from a diocesan finance manager. It said, when I told them that their project would receive €100,000, there were actual tears of joy from several committee members. The emotion was a mix of disbelief, joy, relief at having so much of the fundraising burden lifted, and also a lot of pride that their project had been recognised as worthy of such support. So when you do think about applying for grants, and you think of it as a real burden, and filling in forms and getting quotes and all that kind of thing, you know, it can be a huge boost for your community, and it can be much easier than the type of fundraising that you have to do on a day-to-day level. So just to give you an idea of what kind of grant activities there is across the country, through the grants office we normally bring in, well, it was 2.5 million in 2024, but yeah, around about 2 million per year, and I normally work with about 200 parishes at any given time. Not all parishes are ready to put in an application, so it's normally about 100 applications per year that I would be, you know, helping to get all the way through to push the button. And nearly every diocese engages. There's 20 donors that we work with regularly, and there isn't a guarantee of getting grants, but we do have a really good success rate, 91%. And they vary, the grant sizes vary. So one of the largest grants that we got through was 500,000 towards a new seminary that's being built in Dundalk, in Louth. And the smallest was €400, but that was towards a project just to restore a front door, and it was a quarter of what they needed. So they were absolutely delighted. They just had filled in a form, pressed send, and got €400 check. So they were thrilled with their €400. So there's plenty of, up to now we've been talking about conservation and heritage, but that's not the only types of grants that we can apply for. So there's capital grants with the church buildings. Funders are more and more interested in pastoral or community spaces. That can be a parish hall or a pastoral centre, or even a parochial house that doubles as a community space. And more I'm seeing churches are, huge churches in particular, or they might have crying rooms or crying chapels that they're adapting and converting into community spaces. So there's the funders are very interested in those types of initiatives. Energy efficiency is becoming more popular, and there's a lot of grants through the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. So new heating systems, insulation, windows, doors, and so on. Conservation, I think we've touched on that a lot, but there's a lot of grants around that. We've been working with funders over the last few years. They've really been focused on capital projects, but we've been trying to convince them that we need to invest in the people, which is working. So, for example, last year, a foundation that we work with called the Goubet Foundation, they gave the Irish bishops 750,000 over 3 years to fund lay ministry projects, diocesan projects, of which Waterford and Lismore has received a grant, and social justice projects as well. So I'm just using this example to show that how much you can get through grants. So this is a church in Balbriggan in North Dublin, and that window was nearly collapsing, but they got almost 100% of the costs of the project through applying to 2 different funders. So they got 40,000 through the Historic Structures Fund, and they got 60,000 through the Albert Goubet Charitable Foundation. So I won't talk too much about heritage, but I guess some of the things that Fintan and Evan touched on, and the questions that were asked, what I would say that I've learned over the last 6 or 7 years is that really investing in knowing about your building and in knowing about conservation is good value for money. So even though the surveys and the conservation reports can seem expensive, and you might prefer to get, Jimmy, who sits in the second pew, to just do a little job on the thing, what we're seeing is churches are in millions and millions, tens of millions of euros of projects that have been done by well-intentioned people, but they didn't use best practice when it came to conservation, and it damaged the building to no end. So investing in having the appropriately qualified and experienced people to survey your building is a good investment. The fact that Waterford and Lismore have some supports, some financial supports to invest in surveys, I would grab that. That's amazing. I haven't heard about that anywhere else in the country, and that's made me really happy. It's a brilliant opportunity for all the parishes. So if you do have a protected structure, I would recommend investing in getting a survey done. As Fintan said, the quinquennial inspections, it's these 5-year inspections. When I talk to the conservation officers across the country in the county councils, the Church of Ireland do significantly better than us in their grants, or they get more grants from the county councils than the Roman Catholic. Now there's plenty of reasons for that, but one of them is that the Church of Ireland are able to submit these quinquennial inspections. They have that as a policy. They have to have, all their buildings have to have those inspections done. So let's say I'm helping you to apply to the council to do one stained glass window. We don't have any information to give the conservation officer other than about the window, but the Church of Ireland church next door, they're also applying for their window, but they can also submit this quinquennial inspection report or their conservation survey. So the conservation officer has so much information about the building. They know that you are prioritising the right piece of work, and they know that you have a plan and that this is the right thing that you're doing. So some churches would be doing a window, and in fact they didn't know that there's a massive leak in the roof, or they should be prioritising some other element of work. So basically, if you do invest in the conservation reports, it will pay off when it comes to you applying for grants. It will give you, it will give you an edge over other applicants. So, there is also the Heritage Council, which is not the county council. They will open their grant on the 7th of February, and that's up to €25,000. And we have gotten funding from them for conservation reports for various churches around Ireland. I know that we asked about how much is a conservation report. That particular one was a church in Avoca in Wicklow. The conservation report was €15,000, and we got a grant for €12,000. And they were, as Fintan said, it had like a traffic light system in it where it said, you need to do this now. Red, you need to do it now or in the next 2 years. Orange, you need to do that in the next 5 years. Green, you're okay, we'll check that the next time we come back. So it's a very helpful document, and Avoca actually have their conservation report up on their website if you want to see it and see if you think that would be a helpful document for you guys to have. And the other thing is adapting to climate change. I'm interested to see what's going to happen after the storm. I haven't heard from too many parishes this week, but all these storms, there's going to be a lot of issues with drainage and roofs and so on. So that's an element of the heritage and conservation that's coming more to the fore, to make sure your gutters are big enough for the type of rain that's coming, and your drainage and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to have the right people involved. Even if it does seem expensive, I think it's something to think about. On lay ministry, evangelisation and synodality, we have had, there's a number of funders that we can go to even if you have a local parish project. For example, in Westmeath, there's a project, it's linked to Laudato Si, and it's to do with the John Paul II Award. So they bring together 20 young people every year, and they have a biodiversity project. So they created a garden within their within their parish. And every year we were able to get them funding. They got €5,000 the first year, 3,000 the next year. So, and that is through a funder called the Koch Foundation. And their grants are open now until the 1st of May. So we can apply at diocesan level, at parish level, if a number of parishes are coming together. They have a very broad interest, which is just evangelization. So anything to do with evangelization, we should be able to apply. And Waterford and Lismore, various parishes have been successful with the Koch Foundation over the last few years. And then digital evangelization is something that's of big interest to the funders as well. myfaith.ie was an initiative that was came out of the Diocese of Ossory, so it's an online resource to help people who are interested in lay ministry so that they can access training and supports and resources online, because they found that people were really struggling to come to in-person courses or take off, weekends to come in, and also they wanted to make sure that they had really high quality resources for people. So they created this platform called myfaith.ie, and we got £60,000 from a funder called Benefactors Trust towards that project. And synodality as well. That's it's part of every project that we're doing now, really. So it's something that the funders are looking at. We've gotten funding through a funder called Porticus. So if there's parish level or regional projects that are linked to synodality, that's something to bear in mind as well. You can call me about those. As I said, more funders are more and more interested in community and social work. So there's funders that used to just fund church projects, but they're becoming a bit more interested in what is the parish doing to connect with and engage and support not just the worshipping community but the wider community. So one of our biggest funders is called the Albert Gouvet Charitable Foundation. So they say that they are prioritising what they call outward-looking parishes. So, a rural church that's open once a week for Mass or once every fortnight for Mass, that's going to be lower on their priority list than a parish which is sharing its facilities. So often that comes as being a community centre, a parish centre, or a pastoral centre, or even, as I said, spaces within a church. Even a large sacristy being used as a meeting room for pastoral groups, or that can come under their funding. So the funding can be larger for projects that are benefiting the wider community. So we've gotten funding for pastoral centres, like food banks and other diocesan charities that are addressing poverty, mental health and addiction, education and employment. And the picture there is St. Patrick's Hall in Arva in Cavan, and that received funding from numerous funders, and you can see that they've done a great job there.
So what's the name of the foundation you mentioned?
So the Albert Gouvet Charitable Foundation is one of the foundations. And they also funded this large 1960s hall. It's used as a sports and recreation hall, and then upstairs there's meeting rooms, and that was all restored inside with help from a number of donors. And at Corpus Christi Parish in Moyross, that's one of the most disadvantaged areas in Ireland. The parish church and the school then built a building between those two buildings which connect them as a kind of a parish hub, and they have a number of initiatives for children who go to the school, and it's a very popular a very popular project with our funders. Ballina Churches Together in Killala, that's where the leaders of the 4 Christian churches came together, and they have this initiative where they have outreach workers that are going around, especially in the more disadvantaged neighbourhoods in Ballina, and supporting those most in need. So they came together, and there's 2 roles there in the diocese of outreach to people who are experiencing disadvantage and marginalisation. And again, we were able to get funding for those salaries through our funders. So some of the tricky ones, but not impossible, are graveyards, car parks, because the funders are really more interested in the buildings rather than the outside of the buildings. There's church grounds, statues and monuments, CCTV, and research and study. But it's not impossible, but it's one that we do struggle. It is harder to get funding for those ones. So the other thing, outside the grants, sometimes they can cover a lot of the cost of your project, especially if you're in a very disadvantaged area or if you're a very outward-looking parish. But there is other ways to that you'll need to plan for your fundraising to match the grants. So we can also talk about, if you ring, we can talk about some of the other opportunities and learn from other parishes on how they have fundraised strategically, especially if your project is a long-term project. And we could talk about what way to go about if you think you have a problem in your building. Well, you've learned today from Evan and Fintan, so those are 2 people we could go to. But before you start getting stuck in, and before we go to funders, I can help you to plan, to say, we have a leak or we have a cracked window, or what are we going to do? So I can help you with that. And one thing that the funders are looking at is they want you to prove that you've consulted the community about the project, so that you know that the community is behind you. So if you have a €1 million project, they want to know that you've told everybody in your community, and that they have said, okay, yeah, we're ready, we're going to do it, we'll do this €1 million project, rather than just 1 or 2 people ploughing ahead and expecting everybody else to come along. So the community consultation, so I used to live I was born in Malawi in Africa, and I used to live in Zambia and Tanzania as well. And I just remember this one project that we had heard about there, and it was that this American group that said that they were experts in water, they came to a community in Zambia, and they identified that the community were unhealthy and they needed access to clean water. So that was obvious enough. And then they said that they would put in a well, and they went and met the chief, and they decided where to put the well, and they put the well in. And they came back a year later, and the people were still very unhealthy, and they said, what's the problem? And the women and children said, the well is in a really dangerous place. We're getting attacked when we go there, and we don't want to go and get the water. So they had to re-establish where they were going to put the well. So I just think it's a really good example of why you need to consult your community to make sure that they're behind you on the project, that their ideas have been taken into consideration, that they're going to get behind the fundraising, and as Evan and Fintan have said, that they're going to get into the ongoing maintenance after you've invested all this money and done this huge project. Are that community committed to helping to sustain that building and that parish? So that is why funders do ask, how did you come to this? How did you come to the decision that you're going to undertake this project? So, so basically, as I said, if you have an idea of a project, if you think you have a project coming up, then you can call me. But when it comes to applying, most funders won't fund a project that's already started, and certainly not when it's finished. You'd need to have 3 quotes or have been through a tendering process. I know that's so difficult. It's even hard to get somebody to come out to look at a roof, or even if you think it's a massive project, it's very difficult. But particularly last year, I saw such disparity between quotes and tenders. You know, there was a wild difference between the costs. So I really do encourage you, even if you're not applying for a grant, to try to get 2 or 3 quotes on anything that you're looking at. The planning permissions need to be in place. Lee was saying almost every building is a protected structure, so sometimes you even need an exemption. You just need a piece of paper that says you don't need planning permission. So make sure that you have planning permission before you start applying to the funders, because they won't take an application without the planning permission in place. And then you need to know how you're going to get the rest of the money. So it's kind of chicken and egg. People ring me when they don't have any fundraising done, looking for grants, but we do need to have a plan about how you're going to co-fund the project, even if you do get a grant. So when to apply is when you have these things, but when to call me is tomorrow. Call me tomorrow if you have a project. So that is it. That's my presentation. But so if you have any questions at all.
Is there anything for restoration of church organs?
Yeah, it's there can be there's some funders will fund. Yeah, church.
I'm Bjorn in the morning.
Yeah, okay, great.
There are definitely some funders, are there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
we started it. Is that eliminated?
We'll see. We might be able to get some.
But I've
Thank you. I bring tomorrow morning.
Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. Well. Oh yeah.
Clear. You mentioned about Albert Base.
Yeah.
Are there other ones, agencies who?
Yeah, there's plenty. I won't bother listing them off now.
Okay,
but there is lots of opportunities. I think, and once you've done one application, we can use that application, to fill in the other forms, so you don't feel like you're starting from scratch every time. As I said, it depends what the capacity is in your parish. If you have a secretary or a volunteer who would like to get involved and kind of learn about making applications, that's great. If you have no time and no support, I will help you every step of the way to get the applications done.
So we can apply to different agencies for the same project. And,
as long as you don't, it's never ever happened, but you just can't get more than 100% of the application, basically. Yeah. So if your project's 100,000 and one funder gives you 70,000 and another gives you 50,000, then you'd have to give them back the 20. But that's never happened.
Thank you.
But no, funders want to see you applying to lots of different funders. They don't want you to just go to them.
Could you summarise briefly what works definitely wouldn't come under? There's numerous grants that have been mentioned between donors, etc., etc.
Yeah,
what
I guess
works wouldn't come under a grant?
Funders tend to stay away from what they call cosmetic projects. So if it's just just painting the church, that can be a hard one to get funding for. But if you've had a big leak and your wall is wrecked and you needed to do a little bit of replastering and then you need to repaint it, then we could apply. So there's ways to frame things, but cosmetic things, or works that are not really necessary, they would probably not prioritise those ones.
Yeah, as you're aware, all the churches they're old buildings, and they cost massive money to maintain.
Yeah. And if you can show that you have a maintenance plan and that you're aware of what needs to be done and that you have a good group of people there committed to maintaining the building, that can help with your application, because some of the funders will look at their investment as, and they'll examine the information that they have, and they'll even think, is this parish going to be here in 20 years? Should we invest in this one, or will we invest in this other one? So if you can show that you have a good decision making, that you have committees, that you have a panel of volunteers and that kind of thing, people who are committed to heritage or community or whatever it can be, that can help as well. So I think the funders are thinking that those are the parishes that are going to become the kind of central hubs for areas. So that those are the ones that they're looking for.
Sorry, can I just say something in parallel to that? Even Duffy again, because I just heard just talking about decoration of churches. Be careful what paint you use. I know this sounds extreme, but you can make the situation a lot worse by using the wrong paint on a lot of these walls, because, as I mentioned before, the technology is quite simple. It's single leaf masonry construction. Usually it relied on breathable renders on each side, like usually a soft line plaster on the inside and then a slightly harder one on the outside. And if you put an emulsion paint or something even in the inside of that wall, you're going to stop that breathability, and you're going to get damp somewhere. So it sounds extreme, but you do need just something as simple as the paint. Make sure that it's a breathable paint, a clay paint, something like that, but not an emulsion, not an oil paint. And so on. Just say that generally, because it's an easy mistake to make.
And I would encourage parishes to tap into. There are organisations that were mentioned, the Georgian Society, your conservation officer in your county, and Evan briefly touched on that he's part of an organisation called SPAB, and they are a charity which support. They want to promote the protection of heritage. So you can call them if you need advice, and you'll access people like Evan. So if you are undertaking that, even something like Fintan said, something that is as simple as a painting of a church, it's good to get advice from people about what the right thing to do is. Great. Well, so I hope you all have my number and my I'll get it back up. Yeah. So thanks a million, guys. And thank
Yes. Very good.
Sir, please just ask me to say a prayer or give a blessing. Literally just now. So we give thanks for the afternoon we've had, for the expertise that's been shared with us, the generosity, the resources, and we give thanks for the beautiful heritage that our buildings contain. So we pray that we may do our best collectively to maintain them and to foster faith in God. May Almighty God bless us all, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.